And welcome everybody to this month's Intentional Success webinar. I'm Tom Stimson, and it's time to complicate your marketing strategy. We're going to talk today about how sales without marketing is just a little bit too expensive. It's some expensive wishing, and we're going to try and put some intentionality into the marketing that we do. But this means you're going to have to change the way that you're doing some things, and we're here to talk about what those are. So I am, of course, your presenter, Tom Stimson. Well, you're here, so you know how to find me. Check out the Facebook group. Got YouTube videos, the whole bit. Please connect with me on LinkedIn if you haven't done that already. I'd love to do that. I need to pause real quickly here and thank our Jumpstart Workshop sponsors. AV Franklin, the Layard Group, Higher Track, Lasso, Flex, Square AV, and Televent, and the folks at Avixa, who helped make all of this possible. Believe it or not, this isn't free. This is there's some costs involved on our end to do this, and it's a big commitment on my part. I think you guys are worth it, but I appreciate the fact that our sponsors are supporting this and supporting you as well. So thank you to all of them. So why this webinar, and why in the world would we want to complicate anything that we already don't understand very well? Well, first of all, it all starts with your marketing is geared for yesterday's buyers. You know, the marketing that I was teaching, even 2 years ago at the Jumpstart Workshop, the first marketing workshop for Jumpstart, which was I think 2.5 years ago, we're already teaching different things. It's very quickly evolving. But the big problem that we have with most of our marketing today is that we're assuming a buyer who is much older than the buyers that we're actually seeing now. And generationally, a lot of our marketing is geared for the people who are no longer the folks that you're dealing with. They're their boss or their boss's boss. So we have a lot of marketing that's geared for older buyers, and we have a much younger buying audience today that we need to understand. There's a lot of industry consolidation going on. I don't know if you've heard this, but apparently there are companies that buy other companies and make bigger companies. And the challenge is that they have a lot of buying power, and they have marketing departments and chief marketing officers, and they can make a lot of noise. And they can make your life very, very difficult if you're a small player and you don't have a big voice in the industry. So industry consolidation is threatening to mute your message, make you hard to hear. But we can counteract that because even your smallest competitor has access to better marketing tools than you do. So if we start using the tools that are available out there, and we start understanding what marketing does for us and how it helps us and it works when we're sleeping, then we can counter some of the noise and some of the messaging that's coming from other companies. Because on the internet, all of us, we're all the same size. You get out there into the digital world, you can't tell how big a company actually is by the size of their tweet. So small competitors can outmarket you. Big competitors can outmarket you. We better figure out this marketing thing. Now, the reason a lot of us don't, and I know the challenge that many of you are going to have as you work through this webinar and start talking with each other afterwards or talking to the people who didn't attend, is that you've tried a lot of the things I'm going to talk about in the past and they failed. And that's going to keep you stuck there. Just the fact that you bring up something that's tried and failed tells me two things. One, you are stuck in the past, and two, you're not necessarily ready or not aware that you can manage things better. Very often we can make a bad decision or do a poor and blame the failure on that decision when in fact it was our execution that was not good. So some of your past marketing initiatives may have failed, but I'm going to give you a few techniques that might improve it the next time that you try. Because again, we need to know who we're talking to and what we're trying to accomplish. Marketing is a lot more complicated than simply advertising. We have old tools holding us back. Some of us are stuck in some paradigms. Some of us are, don't have centralized CRMs. We're keeping our client database on a spreadsheet or not at all. We're using applications that are out of date or not integrated. These things can hold us back. We also have some out-of-date thinking that I run to about the role of sales. And one thing I've made a pledge to, if you've been following my writings and the things that I've been blogging about, is I am going to train myself to get out of the habit of talking about sales and marketing like two different things. And very often I'll talk about sales, business development, and marketing as separate entities, but now I'm going to start talking about how they're all one thing and they're all part of marketing. Okay, so all the things that we do that allow us to sell are actually marketing, and therefore a lot of what we do in sales is actually marketing. These all have to work together. So the old school thinking is that sales does a lot of the heavy lifting. The sales is the one that goes out there and cultivates the lead and closes the deal and all that kind of good stuff. And the honest truth is that doesn't really work anymore. It only works with a very small number of the audience out there. A very small number of buyers want to deal with a salesperson to help them make a decision about who to hire. A lot of their decision is made before salespeople ever get involved. So we have a really strong sales tool that doesn't get to do any work until after the client's already made a decision, which seems like a lot of wasted effort. But marketing can make up for all of that. And then we've got those old things that they're just hanging out there. Well, we can't really do our marketing yet, and we can't have a business development initiative because we haven't gotten our CRM going, or any other thing that you may have that you think you need to do first. And so all of these things kind of keep us stuck in the past, and we need to figure out how to get past those. Now, one of the things that holds back management, and I know there are owners and management and decision makers here who are holding the purse strings of the organization, and a lot of you are going to protest that some of the things that we talk about in marketing are expensive. And you're right, they do cost money. Many of you do need to make some investments that you have not made in the past, or you've managed to get by without making in the past. And what we're looking for, what these people often tell me is that, well, what's the return? How many new jobs am I going to get if I exhibit at a trade show? What I want to tell you today is that this straight line thinking is not the math that you need to do. Marketing math is a little bit circuitous. Okay? Trade show provides you leads, which is part of the process of marketing. How do we convert leads into prospects is the real question that we need to be asking. And marketing can help us do that as well. When we make a sales call, we want to be cultivating prospects. When we finish the sales call, we want to have a prospect on our hand. But the problem with that is for most of us, for most of our businesses, the client doesn't necessarily have a need when you call them. So we're converting them into a prospect, but there's no actual need. So we've used a lot of valuable sales energy for somebody who might buy later. In between the time that we talk to them and they actually do have a need, your competition is going to talk to them. So how do we talk to them in between these so-called sales calls? How do we keep a prospect engaged? And how do we help them remember that you're the company that they actually want to do business with? And that all comes back to marketing. And these relationships that we pride ourselves on, and we're a relationship-driven business. I'm making air quotes with my fingers, guys, right now. Well, we're all about relationships. Sure, but you can have a relationship with a buyer. And that relationship often doesn't matter when they're not buying. But in marketing, in a more complex marketing strategy, we're maintaining those relationships even when the client is not buying. So buyers, they overcome everything they know about you, but they don't overcome what they know about others. So while your relationship may help your buyer feel better about you, there's somebody else that's working on them at the same time. And we all know about the squeaky wheel and the last call, or the last person that contacted me, or call the customer. You never know when they're going to have an order right in front of them and they can give it to you right then. All of those things are true. But sales is a very inefficient way to exercise that theory. So what happens if we don't embrace marketing and don't figure out how to do the kind of marketing that works for us 24/7 is we run out of leads. And when you run out of leads and the phone's not ringing, you start chasing prospects. You start chasing people who have RFPs ready to deliver. And a lot of sales plans that I've reviewed, even in the past couple of years, are when our salespeople aren't busy, they're supposed to be calling prospects and finding out if they have a job coming up and can we please bid on it. And trust me, back in my day when I was selling and doing live event sales, that worked. because very often that was the only way we could reach out. But remember, back when I was doing this, there was no internet. Al Gore hadn't invented it yet. So if we're chasing RFPs, we're not necessarily dealing with a qualified client. The qualification is the fact that they had an RFP, which means we drop everything we're doing because we're going to write a proposal. But because the client is not well qualified and they don't really know who you are, and they haven't totally bought in to your brand, they're not the ones deciding to do business with you. You're the one asking them to do business with you. They're going to be a little tentative. And then you're going to end up selling on price. And the more you sell on price, the lower your margins, the worse your cash flow. So you're closing a deal, and then the first thing you're doing is you're asking for a deposit because you need to pay last month's bills. And this is that failure, this is that cycle that we get into. And it all comes down to the fact that we don't have any marketing, which is developing our pool of leads and prospects, so that we're not chasing RFPs. We're actually having value-based conversations with people who've already decided they want to do business with us because our marketing says we're a perfect fit. And that's what marketing should be doing for us. All those things that we used to do with a salesperson, we can now do with marketing, and we need to do with marketing, because if we don't, someone else is going to do it. So in this complicated marketing scenario that I'm describing, marketing's job is to answer all the questions that your old school sales process used to answer. Marketing should help the potential buyer know enough about you to want to learn more and ask more questions. You know, the process that buyers go through, the first question they want answered is who? Who are you? Now, in a well-branded company with great marketing, I can go to your website and find out who you are. I want to find your brand story. I want to find your history. I want to hear about your founder. I want to know what business that you think you're in and who your customers actually are. These are all things that help me as a potential customer see myself doing business with you. So marketing can answer who you are and what you do for your customers. And when the customer engages, because they want to know how you do it. They want to say, hey, I like what you do. That's what I need. Tell me more about how you do it. And then ultimately, before they make the decision to buy, before they finally pull the trigger, they want to answer the question, why? And the question why is, why are you guys doing what you do? And I won't learn that. I won't understand the underlying passion in your business and what you do until I get to know you. And that's where that relationship thing kicks in. You know, I pick on relationship salespeople, but there is a point in the marketing process where the relationship really does matter, and it's when that customer finally realizes that you're exactly what they need, but now they want to get inside your head and understand why you're exactly what they need. And it's that final moment where they realize that, yeah, this is that match made in heaven. And without marketing, it's very difficult to cultivate that series of questions, because we have to focus all of our energy on one person for a really long time, develop them as a potential customer, and then wait for them to actually have a need. Marketing works while you're sleeping, and they can answer at least two of the questions and in the process qualify themselves as a potential buyer without ever having to use up any valuable sales resources. So our mindset has to change. In order for you to better understand what I'm talking about, we want to change the mindset that many companies have, is that we want to go from buyer to buyer saying, do you have anything I can bid on? And flip the table so that buyers are coming to you saying, can you do this for me? That's our ideal situation. We want to quote from a position of strength. There's nothing stronger in a selling relationship than a buyer who wants to buy from you. That gives you a lot more control. If you want the margins that you deserve, that your business was designed to generate, what you need are buyers that are more than willing to give it to you. And they're hard to cultivate one at a time, but if we can cultivate them many at a time, then we start getting a really good return on this marketing. Now, The buyers we're dealing with today are a lot more complex than they were in the past. Back when relationship sales worked, when it was a salesperson and a buyer maintaining the relationship between the two companies, they just wanted a supplier. A lot of times it was difficult. The story I'd love to tell at this point is talking about Yellow Pages. Back in the Yellow Pages day, our challenge wasn't finding the right supplier. Our challenge was finding any supplier. If you took a job to another city, you don't know the people in that city. You don't have a Rolodex full of phone numbers. And so what did we do? We found the Yellow Pages. Well, if you live in Dallas, Texas, how do you get the Yellow Pages in Des Moines, Iowa? Well, that's a problem. Now, I can call somebody in Des Moines and ask them to look up the Yellow Pages and see if they can find any companies under audiovisual. Or you could do what my old company used to do, is we had our truck drivers in every city they stopped in steal the Yellow Pages out of their hotel room and develop a collection of Yellow Pages. Now we have the internet. Okay. Now your customers have the ability to find suppliers anywhere. So they have the luxury of looking for the right supplier. Once we look at your website, which is the way probably 75% of your future buyers will first learn about you, for whatever means they will end up at your website, they're going to make a first impression. That website is going to make a first impression about your brand. And what that impression answers is, who are you? And sometimes who you are is a company that can't even put out a decent website. Sometimes who you are is somebody who doesn't really know what their brand is. And we start to go, okay, well, these guys may not be as sophisticated, but I might still do business with them. The other thing your website can do is provide relevance. Help the buyer understand what you do for me. Because I may find your website and go, wow, this is a cool brand. These guys really seem to be hip. I wonder what they can do what I need. And hopefully your website will answer that question. Because it's awfully inefficient for the customer to say, hey, you have a really great website. Do you happen to do this thing that I need? That's a pretty inefficient conversation. Because the next website they go to might be somebody who answers exactly what they do for people like them. And it will save them the trouble of having to contact you to find out if you're actually a good fit. So the biggest complaint I hear about websites from people who might be your customer is that your website doesn't tell them what it is that you do. Now, it does often tell them how you do things, which they're not always interested in at this point. What you do, how do you, what's the problem that they have that you solve for them? Not how do you solve problems, which is we sell you products, we rent you things, we design things for you, we make drawings. These are all how things. What is things like reduce the number of times that you wake up in the middle of the night and wonder if it should be taken care of. That's a what. Who do you do that sort of thing for? Are there other companies like me as a buyer that that are represented on your website? Are there testimonials of people saying what it is that you do for them? And do they have a job title like mine? These are the things, the social proof, the validation that people are looking for to understand what you do and what you might do for me. So we have to create this relevance, and we have to reinforce this. This is far more important than any how that you might put on your website, any list of products that you are a dealer for or you provide or support. Even those pictures you put on there of wonderful projects that you've put together are far less important than making your company relevant for that particular buyer, that target buyer, the ideal customer that you want to have. So this is all a roundabout way of saying that marketing is not a straight line proposition. Your potential buyers are going to connect with you on multiple levels long before they ever contact you. By the time somebody picks up the phone or sends you the email, they've had enough impressions that says this might be a good decision on my part. And it could be the best decision they ever made, but they won't know until they reach out. So marketing has to be doing a lot of things in the background before we ever engage a sales resource to talk to a potential customer and finish the qualification process. Because even through your best efforts, somebody may reach out to you and they aren't a good fit. They might be a good referral later. They might be somebody who will be a good evangelist for you and your brand, but they may not be a good fit for your business to do business with. And the whole point of marketing is to have enough leads and prospects coming to you saying, can you do this for me? That you can turn them down and still keep your doors open. I'm working with a sales team this week, and one of the things we keep saying is we want to say no to better business. We want better and better clients and opportunities that we can turn down because we have so many fantastic opportunities in our pipeline. And marketing is how we get those opportunities. If we want to stay busy doing profitable work for the right type of customer, marketing is the only process that I know that's going to help get you there. Now, I talk a little bit about the complexity of this, and so far it doesn't sound very complex. It's pretty, hey, I need a better website. Yeah. Complex doesn't have to mean difficult, okay? Some of these things we talk about would be complex to you. At the Jumpstart Workshop on marketing next month, we'll talk about the difference between brand marketing, content marketing, and sales marketing. And these all have different ways of developing prospects, of marketing a customer into a position where they're ready to buy so that you can engage a sales resource. Okay? These things will sound very complicated, sound like they have a lot of layers, but in fact, they're really quite normal in the marketing world. So it may be complex to you because your primary business is to, do productions or rent equipment or sell products, and you don't understand the marketing side of the business. Anything that we can help the customer better understand, simplify their experience is going to help you. Make it hard for them to understand what you do, force them to ask you what it is that you do. I still hear that, that philosophy every once in a while from some people my age who say, well, we just want the customer to look at our website and decide to call us so we can have a conversation with them because we will build a relationship and that's how we do business. And there's usually some thumping on the table at that point. For a buyer my age, that might be a good way of engaging them. But so many of your buyers are much younger, as I said back at the beginning. So because your audience is so complex, because they have so many ways of processing information, because they are basically in 3, maybe even 4 generations of society, we have to have multiple ways for them to understand you. Okay, so multiple avenues for understanding reinforces the prospect's resolve to access you. The more places they look, the better information they get, the more likely they are to reach out to you because everything is validating what they've learned so far. And credibility is everything in marketing. Consistency is everything in marketing. Now, sales, and I sound like I'm devaluing sales, but what I'm doing is I'm integrating sales into the marketing process at the end of the process or towards the end of the process. The ideal time to engage sales is when you have somebody who thinks they already want to buy from you. Now we can integrate sales, put that human interface in there, and finish that process of discovery if the client needs that. You may still have to do some pitch, some dog and pony show to help bring them over the threshold to make that final push into becoming future partners. But sales is now an extension of the whole marketing process. And so when I say, marketing, business development, and sales need to be integrated, it's because it's the entire customer experience that has to be tied together and connected together. There are some there's some pretty complex marketing plans you can put together. You can, it's very daunting when you start getting like a millennial content marketer start talking to you about all the things that you can do with content and how you can engage with your clients, how you can develop leads, how you can find out what their interests are and keyword them and all these sort of things. And it seems very layered and very expensive and very complicated. When I talk about complicating your marketing, I also only want you can do what you can consistently sustain. Marketing initiatives that you're not going to follow through on or keep up are going to ultimately come back and bite you. Okay. What we want to do is plant seeds instead of a few seedlings. If we can plant hundreds of seeds and get 10 seedlings, okay, there's a chance that some of those seeds may come back later and give you a seedling, even though they didn't do one in this planting season. So marketing is rarely ever wasted. If you have good marketing, people think about it. This may not be the time that they investigate further, but we've planted something in there. We've engaged them. Maybe we've gotten them to opt in to learn more about us so we can keep in touch with them so that they can cultivate. I tell people all the time, and my marketing strategy, all of you see all the emails that come out from my organization, is that we're very much built around content. And I can honestly tell you, there's not a month goes by that I don't have a conversation with a prospect who's been following my content for years and years and years. That's what marketing does. Okay. I have leads that are cultivated for me through my marketing efforts. I have prospects who've already figured out that they want to buy from me. They want to do business with me in some way. And it's really up to me to figure out and make sure that we can fit together, finish the final qualification process and move them into a transaction that makes the most sense. Okay. That comes from planting lots and lots and lots of seeds. Okay. And surprisingly, while I do spend a lot of money on marketing compared to a lot of my clients, I get a great ROI for it. But my marketing strategy is a little bit complex if you look at it on the surface. But the good news is I don't have to engage the sales tool until I have a pretty well-developed prospect. And the payoff on that is huge. So marketing works while you sleep. It's got 3 jobs. The attract job, which is one we often skip. When people talk about SEO and keywords and stuff, and that's part of the attraction process. If somebody goes searching for what you do, hopefully they will find you in some form or fashion. But there's other ways to be attractive. Okay, you can be attractive through other media, driving people. If you put the right message out in the right form, whether it's social media, in a trade show, at a networking event, these are also attractive efforts. A lot of business development can be attractive by putting a person in the right place at the right time where they can deal with a lot of different folks. So attracting is something that we need to proactively do and do consistently. That has to be part of our plan. Inform is something that we've already been doing. Our websites are designed to inform. Now, in a comprehensive marketing approach, you may change what that information is. I've already talked a little bit about how you might be need to put a different message on your website. You need to talk about who you are and what you do and save some of the how for later. You need to speak in customer terms and help convince the customer that you are the right company to contact and that they know that you already do something that will be valuable to them. And then the invite is the third step, whether it's on your website through a call to action or an email call to action, or sometimes we simply have business development pick up the phone and invite a potential customer or prospect to learn more about us. We have to do that step of inviting them to us. Okay. The invite replaces that asking for their business. So at some point in time, you have to ask for their business. First, let's invite them to get to know more about us. Let's invite them to share that where we can share something that might be more valuable to them so they can learn more about us. Anything I can do to make them a better buyer is worth my time and effort to do. And so much of this can work while you're sleeping. Your websites, your emails, the marketing that you put out there, your social media works 24/7. Marketing is also about what happens when they do contact you. Like I said, marketing is now completely aligned with the entire customer experience, which includes sales and very often includes operational delivery. We can get into that more. So when somebody's knocking at your door, having a comprehensive, complex marketing plan says we know what to say. We also know what to ask. We understand what the role of listening is so that we can qualify customers. We know what resources that we might introduce or connect them with to help better inform them about what we do, and if necessary, how we do it at that point. And then the customer experience is really focused on next steps, because the entire customer experience is a series of questions that need to be answered. No matter where they are in the process, your customer has one more question that needs to be answered. One of the things we can do to help them is tell them what the next step is at every step of the way. Inform them so that they're asking even better questions and more engaged questions. They're not asking what happens next. They're asking, based on what happens next, can we do this? Which is a much more valuable question. Now, when somebody knocks on our door and they show some interest, we also need a process for that. So if we're going to invite them, what are we going to invite them to? We're going to have to invite them to visit your office, come to an open house. We're going to invite them for a sales pitch, which would be very traditional, or we might invite them to meet the team. For those of you who have been following me and know that, when I talk about the bow tie effect, that bow tie relationship where I've got a customer and a salesperson who talk to each other as the single points of contact that keep their two organizations apart, and it looks like a bow tie. But that's not what we want. Bow ties are bad. What we want to do is we want to turn the bow tie around and make it a diamond, and the way we do that is upon invitation through, for instance, business development. The business development person would say, hey, what I'd really like to do is have you meet my team, and I'd like to bring these 3 people to that meeting, and who from your organization will come to that meeting as well, so that we're getting counterparts talking to each other. And the more people we get talking to each other between the buyer and the seller, the harder it is to break apart that relationship. And once we start doing business, if we do business well and they are a good fit, then it really becomes an unbreakable bond, and it will survive a person leaving or a relationship going sour. So we want to invite them and get that invitation working so that we can find out if there's really a good fit. I want to better understand their needs and wants. I want to better understand what their priorities on spending are, because all of these things have to be balanced. Everything there is a trade-off. What I need and what I want and what I can spend are all trade-offs. So when I talk about fit and finish, do I need a Chevy or a Cadillac or a Hyundai? Here's what we're talking about. This is a conversation that happens as we escalate our relationship. And then every conversation ends with the next step, because the customer experience always has a logical next step. So again, it sounds very complicated, but if you map it out, you're simply defining processes that already exist, that are already happening out there. So we get to the next steps, we give them more, or we escalate the relationship. That's what it's all about. Now, let's get a lead and turn them into a prospect. So if I have somebody who's a lead, they found your website, they've maybe shared their email address, they get your newsletter, okay, your marketing is going to answer who you are. Okay. When they come to the door, they announce themselves to you. They say, please contact me, or send me more information on something. Now they're answering who they are. Okay. And when they actually show some interest, then we want to be able to present to them what it is that we do. And that conversion from a lead to prospect is fulfilling the customer experience of understanding what it is that you actually do. Now, as I said before, I might be able to accomplish all of this through my electronic marketing. My website, my opt-in system may accomplish all of these things for me. What marketing does is going to attract the leads. Okay, we have events, we have ads, we have social media, we have networking, we have referrals. Marketing is going to present the brand to an interested lead. And we have our logos and our taglines and our websites and our social media and our customer experience laid out there. We have videos that talk about what we do. We have testimonials and things that explain what you do for clients. So marketing provides all of these things to help the customer better see themselves doing business with you, better prepared to ask you to do something that would be valuable to both parties. Now, business development, therefore, becomes that human face of marketing. Business development mirrors all the marketing functions. So at some point in time, the lead or prospect has developed information about you. Business development is the human that reinforces that. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a separate business development person in your organization. Business development is a process, and that process can be done by many different people. It can be done by sales. I can wear my business development hat and still wear my sales hat later on in the day. Okay. So I've got a question here. I want to pause here real quick for it. It says, is all the information you're presenting focused on the DIY crowd, or do you have a company who is actually building out this type of marketing funnel? Okay, that's a great question. I think one of the takeaways of this webinar should be that the days of DIY being highly effective are over. That in order to be effective, you're going to have to learn to eventually outsource or bring on permanent resources to do marketing. Very much like there's a point in time where we can no longer keep our own books. I can generate invoices and pay bills for a certain point in time, but eventually I have to hire a bookkeeper because accounting is a fundamental business process. I can rent out a gear and go out and prep it myself and deliver it, but eventually I'll hire a delivery driver. Eventually I'll hire a warehouse manager. Eventually I'll hire a quality control person and an inventory manager. Okay. Marketing is one of those things that are fundamentally required in order to operate your business. And you can DIY and you can do a lot yourself. Somebody who I did do it myself marketing for many, many years, but there's a point in time where in order to be more effective and to continue to grow your business, you need to be spending more time delivering services and making customers happy and less time doing marketing yourself. So there are companies out there, and actually what a marketing company is somebody who can help you develop your sales funnel. And that's the type of conversation you would have with them. You present to them a situation. I need more leads. I want those leads to have a better understanding of what it is that we do. I want to be talking to people who are already prospects, not people trying to find out what it is that we have. Your marketing firm or your marketing team can help you do that. So, good question. Now, in this model, in this complex marketing, what really changes? Okay, well, outreach is more proactive. A lot of people say, well, I don't need leads, I need business. I get that, I understand that. Okay, right now you might need business because right now you need to get a quote out and you need to sell it on price and you need to get the deposit. Okay. If you want to solve that problem, then you need to develop enough leads where the prospects still are filtering themselves out and coming to you and making the opportunities come at you a little bit faster. You need to engage these leads, and it really needs to be automatic. This is, again, where the complexity gets in here. If I get somebody, and all of you have that, submit an RFP, submit a request for information, sign up for my newsletter. Everybody has it on your website. That's the call to action. Share your email address with me and I'll send you more information. But if all I'm getting is a newsletter and getting added to a newsletter list, what is that doing? How is that moving me forward as a prospect? How is that helping develop me? Or is it something that's going to go into somebody's spam box and never be seen again? So once we've convinced somebody to engage with us, and we can get more people to engage with us through calls to action, what am I going to do for them that's valuable for them? At that point in time, I need to do something that helps them in their life and their jobs or whatever it may be, that also shows that I'm a very credible resource for them so that they will hopefully, if they are the right customer, one day take the next step and engage with you as a prospect. Now, once they do engage, once they say, hey, I've been, getting your email. I really like that white paper you guys put out on, this RF frequency issue. This is a problem we've been having on our events. Can I talk to you more about how you solve that problem and how it might help me? Awesome. Let me ask you a couple of questions. And now we have an opportunity to develop the script, because remember, we want a customer experience. We don't want to wing it, because we're trying to get a very specific outcome, which is the next step. So if I have some qualifying scripts to help me better understand who the customer is, make sure I'm getting the full benefit of them having reached out to me, so that I know which next step I need to offer them. And then as we get this prospect into the pipeline, we develop checklists to say, has this target, do they understand what our brand is? Do they understand what our capabilities are? Have they met the owner? Have they met the production team, whatever it might be? Because we want to make sure that they have enough experience to be a well-informed potential buyer. And all of this is going to make it much easier for us to sell and close a particular piece of business. Matter of fact, one of the presentations I'm doing at the Jumpstart workshop for marketing next month is I'm going to talk about sales closing and all the things that we can do to make closing a much more painless and easy to accomplish process. There's a lot of things we can do in the customer experience to make it easier to close a job more profitably. Now, I've talked about customer experience many times in this webinar already, and I want to make sure that you understand that your job is to provide an intentional customer experience. You need to script it out. You need to know what the steps are. You need to take some control over this, because you do have the ability to control the customer experience. Okay? You need to make sure that they know what you want them to know. And we need to make all their choices and their next steps very obvious. We want to make sure everything is very clear to them about what happens now and how you work with companies like theirs. Okay? We want to broaden the engagement, and we can use the customer experience process to actually eliminate that bow tie and create that diamond effect just through our customer experience process. And so, yes, the next step is I need you to meet the team, and I need you to bring your team. Okay? And then being a repeat customer, once we finish a project, we want to do business with them again, and that's also part of the customer experience. Now, many of us rely on salespeople to call on the customer again before next year's job and make sure that we're going to do it again. But in fact, marketing is going to be doing this year-round. There should be no lag between when a project finishes and when we reach out again to the same customer. It's all part of an ongoing thing. They need to continually be doing these things and not be surprised next year when they find out that you've added a capability and they're hearing about it for the first time and they've already engaged somebody else to do that. I know it's hard. I know all this stuff sounds very hard. It can be very painful. But that's because so many of us don't actually have any experience doing this. This is not our lives. This is not what we do. Okay? So right now it's a little bit daunting, but it doesn't have to be hard. Here's what we're doing. You're telling your story better. Many of you don't know what your story is, or you're very, sometimes careful not to actually tell it. You've got some great stories out there. So many companies I've worked with, I walk in for the first time and I find out that the company is 70 years old and that it's a second or third generation company. And they don't talk about that anywhere on their website or their marketing. These things are fascinating. Oh, I don't want them to think we're a mom and pop company. No, you don't have to be a mom and pop company. What you are is a company with a legacy and a heritage and a history and a story that's very interesting to people. People want to know who you are and why you are who you are. And we can start answering those questions for them. Now, we talked about attract and inform. This is a better interface. Okay, so we're not talking about a big deal. We're just talking about making a few intentional changes into how we engage with folks so that we can move them along the customer experience. You can at least capture a lead on your website, but have a methodical way of following up and engaging with them. Okay? But you can also have a two-stage process where a lead can also identify themselves as a prospect by showing interest in something that's part of your expertise, for instance. Okay? Now, I'll give you an example here. The fact that you're here listening to a webinar on marketing says that as a potential prospect, you have an interest in marketing. Stage one is you signed up for a newsletter. So you have interest in business because that's all I write about. So stage 2 is, oh, you specifically have an interest in marketing. Okay, this is all great information so we know how to tailor the next moment in the customer experience. Marketing is hard, but it's because you can plan months ahead. And the planning may be daunting, but the fact is you can plan months ahead and make a lot of things happen. One of the keys to good marketing is consistency. If you're going to communicate to your audience, you have to do it consistently. It can't be, oh, by the way, oh, we need to get another newsletter out. No, if you commit to a newsletter, if you commit to a way of informing people, you need to be consistent about it because that affects people's perception of your dedication to the message. Keep your message simpler. A lot of you are trying to talk about 10 or 12 or 14 different things, when in fact you might need to talk about 1, 2, 3, or 4 things. And stick to those talking points. Don't worry about all the other things that you know about. If 80 or 90% of your customers will connect to 4 talking points, do not talk about 5. If 75% will connect to 3, maybe you need to talk about 3 and be more effective at talking about them. Now, another way to make this less hard for you is delegate. Okay? Let everybody in the organization take a piece of this. Okay? Research is very important in all of this as well. We want to delegate a lot of these tasks, and we also want to outsource. So if you're going to DIY and you're an owner-operator, then delegation is going to be very important. Outsourcing will make up for anybody that you don't have that you need to delegate to. You know, if you need a graphics artist, outsource it. Right? And then the other thing that we do in a complex marketing plan is we don't waste qualified leads. Okay, you always have to have time for a pipeline. So a mistake that I will see companies make is they go to all the trouble to develop this marketing plan. They're attracting more customers, but then they're completely tied up with the business at hand and don't have time to talk to somebody who just wants to learn more about you. We're going back to that mindset. If there's not an RFP, then we don't have time to deal with it. But in fact, customer experience means you always have to have time. So you have to have the resources built in there so that you can address these things. So any kind of marketing that you can do through automation that doesn't require human intervention is going to be to your advantage. It will take away some of the difficulty in getting this done and being consistent at it. So I want to restate again that marketing, business development, and sales are all part of the same process. Okay? All of these things that you do are fundamental business processes that you need to be more dedicated to, more intentional about doing, because if you don't, your competition is going to do it. They're going to steal all your thunder. They're going to take all the oxygen out of the room and leave you with no business. So I've got a couple tools here. I'm going to ask make some room for some more questions here in just a second, but I want to let you know that if you've never done a marketing plan and you would like to learn what a marketing plan looks like, shoot me an email, tom@trstimson.com, and I will send you the complete AV marketing plan template. It's a nice overview. There's some great things to think about there. You don't have to do everything in that marketing plan, but there's some questions that you need to answer that will help you be better right away. I'll also send you 10 questions to qualify prospective clients. These are things that can be part of the customer experience when somebody reaches out to you to help learn more about them, help learn more useful things about them, other than when their next RFP is and the fact that they won't tell you what their budget is. So I'm going to give you some better questions. Just shoot me an email. I'm happy to send those things to you. So Q&A here in just a minute. Couple of housekeeping notes. Next month's webinar, we're going to talk about that mid-year management checkup, how to check your results, not at the end of the quarter, at the end of 1/3 of a year, and why we do it then and why that's different than any other kind of checkup that you might do. So this is the time of year to do it. Jumpstart workshops. As you probably already know, the registration for Jumpstart Lessons in Marketing is open. Matter of fact, Friday is the end of the early bird pricing period, which is our lowest price. But for those of you on this webinar, and for the people who didn't hang up early, I've got a heck of a deal for you. If you're ready to work on your marketing and you're ready to send one or two or three or 8 people to this workshop, email me, let me know that, and I will send you a discount code that will let you have $500 off of every single ticket you buy. So you'll get $500 at the best advertised price right now, which right now is still the early bird. So you can get some really good pricing if over the next 2 days you finally commit and say, it's time to start working on this. I've got a deal for you. I'm going to make it easier for you. Just shoot me an email and I'll get you taken care of. We'll get you set up and get you guys down here to Dallas for the Jumpstart Workshop. Now, the program, let me talk about that real quick. It's all new. If you've been to a Jumpstart before, we're in a new venue. It's a great hotel. The food is so much better. We're going to talk about marketing, business development, and sales, how they work together to grow and profit. We have some fantastic guest speakers. I tell you what, I'm stoked. I'm very excited about these folks. Holly Wade's going to come in and talk about brand stories. We're talking about making sure that we get that message out of who you are and why you are that company very quickly to help that buyer better understand you. Carl Becker is going to come back to us again and talk about sales prospecting. So Holly's going to talk about brand marketing. Carl's going to talk about sales marketing. And Joel Widmer from Flex Digital Marketing is going to come back and he's going to talk about content marketing. So you're going to learn about all the different types of marketing and how they fit together. They all work together. They're not independent of each other. And then I'm going to talk about, I've got several topics I want to talk about as well. So it's 2 days of fantastic learning, lots of great ideas. We're going to help you make your business better as quickly as you can. So don't hesitate. Please join us and be sure you're on my mailing list. If you're not already, get my ebook, Introductory Conversation. You guys know I love to talk about this stuff. I'm happy to talk with you. Even if you don't think that you'll ever be a client of mine, or even come to a workshop, that doesn't mean that I won't sit down and give you a conversation, help you answer some questions, better understand your business or understand the industry. I love talking about this stuff. It is not a waste of my time. Don't hesitate. Reach out to me. Let's have a chat. Another quick thank you to the sponsors and some final thoughts here, and then I'll answer any questions that are still left. So marketing is a full-time process, right? The return on investment for marketing is reducing the amount of sales and business development resources you need to grow your business. Instead of throwing people at the problem, use marketing because it works even when your people are sleeping. So developing a marketing plan is actually less expensive than the sales resources it would take to develop your business. And consistency is more important than variety. I see a lot of folks trying really hard to be a lot of things to a lot of people. Being consistent and keeping your message simple. You can be creative about what you talk about, okay, but be consistent and keep it simple. Keep the number of messages you're trying to get out there to a minimum. And delegate, outsource, and then measure your results. Okay? It's all about your sales funnel. Everything we do in marketing, sales, and business development, we can measure the results of that. We can see how many leads we have now versus leads from last month, how many prospects we have now versus, and then we can always look at our revenue and see that our business is actually growing. It's all about the sales funnel, so start measuring that. All right, I'll take any other questions you have, and I will start with this one here. Give me a second to process this. All right, so I'm going to kind of, I'm going to paraphrase this question because it's really rather kind of long. So the question has to do with how do we explain to somebody who has not looked at our website, hasn't looked at our marketing, any of that kind of stuff, who we are? Do I need an elevator pitch? All right. This is an it depends questions. And so what I want to answer is the question that is most likely. And the reason the question like this matters is because sometimes somebody who you want to be a prospect asks you who you are. You need to have an answer. And you need to have an answer that is not salesy and is really only in customer terms. Okay? The story I love to share about this is called the Who's Better Than You story. I was at an event many years ago. We were the new vendor in town. Nobody knew who we were. And somebody said, okay, who are you guys? Well, we're the guys from Dallas. We do a lot of video, blah, 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 blah. Huh. He goes, well, that's interesting. Well, who's better than you? Well, if I'd had a great elevator pitch, you probably wouldn't have had to ask that question. The fact is, this wasn't a potential buyer. This is somebody who simply wanted to know who we were and whether or not we mattered on their job site that they were also working on. Who's better than you is probably the most important question you can answer in marketing. And here's why you care. The suppliers or competition that is better than you have the customers that you actually want. Your ideal customers are not with your lesser competitors. Your ideal customers have already found a top competitor to do business with. So when you're worried about your competition, worry about the people who are better than you are, because that's where your ideal buyer is actually going. So make sure you tailor your elevator pitch to the right audience. You want somebody who's already shopping with someone who's better than you. And that's a really complex answer, but trust me, you've got a brand story that will help bring that conversation along. So get customers to appreciate the quality that they can get from you instead of what your better competitors are providing. And years ago, when I was working with Alfred Media, and we were that young company, we're the company that's being asked who's better than you. We had some great competitors, and we honestly didn't know very much about them. But we had an approach to doing things, and we had a story about how we did things that was better than their story. And so we just learned to tell our story and let the story speak for itself. And that, in many ways, is the better elevator pitch. So the short elevator pitch is, here's what we do for people. Answer the question of what. And then when people start wanting to learn more, then we could talk a little bit about the how. And that's what's really important. All right, let me see. Do we have another question going here? Stand by. And there we go. We're running out of time. All right. So I'm going to leave it at this because we are now at the top of the hour and I've got to move on. But tell you what, if you guys have any more questions about this, send me an email. Send me an email if you would like the handouts that I just offered you about the marketing business plan and qualifying questions. Send me an email if you'd like to send some people to the Jumpstart workshop and you'd like to save a lot of money, and I will send you a code that you can use that will let you save that money. We'd be happy to have you. And if you'd like to just have a conversation with me, go to my website, set up an appointment, or shoot me an email and we'll figure it out, figure out a good time. So I want to thank everybody again for joining us. This was a good turnout today. I know you guys can't see each other, but I can see you. So I think it was a very productive afternoon. So thank you so much. Keep in touch, and we'll see you next month.